And welcome back to Cottage Talk. I'm Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Max Cohen. This is our post-match show of Fulham's 3-0 victory against Tottenham Hotspur at Craven Cottage on Saturday. What a victory for Fulham. Max and I will be talking about this probably in the next 45 minutes to an hour. If you're watching live and want to comment, please feel free to share a comment. Please feel free to share who was your man of the match. We'll get to that at the end of the show. I did a full-time show. That was great. I think this is going to be possibly even better, Max, doing it with you. This should be fun. I hope a lot of people join us. I actually at one point probably had about 100 people joining me live for my full-time show. I don't know if we'll get up to those numbers, but I think there's going to be a decent amount of people with us live, so this should be fun. Please feel free to comment to Max and myself. Okay. As always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. All right, Mr. Cohen, let's get going. Let me get your opening thoughts on this massive victory. Before I get your thoughts, did you see this coming?
No, I didn't, Russ. We talked about it last week, and I thought you were overly optimistic, and I was wrong. You were 100% right. That was maybe the best performance of the season.
Absolutely.
Probably the best. Definitely the best. I think, we beat Arsenal, who was a better team, but there are times in that match when we were under the cosh. In this match, with the exception of a few moments, we were comfortable. The match was over at the hour mark. 3-0 up against Spurs, who, remember last week, smashed Villa, challenging for Europe. They needed this match more than we did. And that's why, Russ, I was pessimistic last week. I said, we're at home, we're good at home, but Spurs need to show up. And we made what many people were saying one of the most fluid attacking teams in the league this season, with the new manager who everyone had hyped up, with players like Madison and Son, who everyone loves to rave about. What a masterclass by Silva, and what a masterclass by almost every player on the pitch. Let's just shout out Muniz for a second. Unbelievable. 2 goals again. And Lukic, first goal ever in the Premier League for Fulham, and he was just lights out, I think, all match. And those are 2 people I want to say at the beginning. But you could say everyone, even Anthony Robinson, with the best attacking display I've seen from him. And if he plays like that, then he can be one of the best fullbacks in the league. We've always said it, Russ. He needs to get the crossing in order. And he put probably 2 of the best crosses I've seen all season from him.
Fantastic. I want to give him full credit. And again, many will have him as man of the match. We'll get to that at the end of the show. When I did my full-time show, many had him as man of the match. And I agree with that. And listen, I've been tough on him over the past 3 years, basically calling it the way I see it. And it's all come down to the crossing, Max. It really has. And also tracking back in a little bit, but he's gotten better at the defensive part of the game. So he's become a complete fullback. So I want to give him full credit on that. And we'll talk about that. I'm sure his name's going to come up more than once because he was vital to the Fulham victory. So many players. It's hard to single out one. And we will get to that, like I said, during the show, talking about all the players. Marco, his coach and stuff. There's so much to get to on this, Max. So let's get going on it. Let's start here because I want to tell you while I go through my opening thoughts. I did my 5 keys to victory for this match. One of them was, could they apply what they learned from Arsenal, Liverpool, and Manchester United in this match? I think Fulham did that. Could they counterattack against this team? They did that. Could they score the first goal? Did that. Could they feed Rodrigo Muniz the ball early and often? I would say they did that. Final one was Marco would have to win the coaching battle. And all my keys to victory, I'm not trying to basically give myself credit. I was just trying to point out ways that I thought that they could win. And they did them all, Max. And for me, that is just tremendous that they were able to execute his game plan. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But more importantly, it was the performance, Max. I think this is the best performance of the year. I think one of the best Fulham victories I've seen since I've been a Fulham supporter. And that's saying a lot. I said that on full time. There have been some tremendous Fulham victories. There's been the playoff final you and I have been to. This has to be in the top 10. This victory for me has to be in the top 10. Would you agree with that or disagree?
I think so. I was just running through my head the way we played as well. We haven't talked about it. The passing triangles, the one-touch passing.
Fantastic.
The through balls, just the quickness of play. It really felt like the culmination of what Marco Silva wanted us to do ever since he took over, 3 seasons ago. It feels like he's been here all his life, but it's really only 3 seasons, right? 4 seasons, I guess, is the fourth. What he's done has been unbelievable. If you can think where we were at the beginning of the season and where we even were in winter, the way he's turned around the culture, the atmosphere of the club into a situation where, well, I think someone said we lost 2 of our last 8, and we beat Spurs, we beat Arsenal, we beat United.
Unbelievable.
should have gotten results against other teams, arguably. We're making the Cottage a fortress again. And I think that is one thing which needs to be said up front, is that teams are no longer wanting to come to play at the Cottage. And that's the best part of our Premier League success, is being dominant at home. But the passing, just the movement, the energy from every single player, we were up for it. And I think that's credit to Silva for picking the team, but also, it was Arsenal, I think, was a different match because we were sat back for a lot of it, and we got a set piece goal and a bit more defensive, sure. But we played with confidence.
Absolutely, Max. And that's going to lead us to talk about Marco's game plan, okay? Because I think this is a big part of the victory. You can have a game plan, because I've listened to and watched a lot of videos from Tottenham supporters complaining about how their team played, how sluggish they were. And I'm going to talk about this in another topic, because I don't think Fulham are getting enough credit. And I think part of the reason why is they don't understand that Fulham were set up to stifle their team, Spurs, beat them on the counter, and be lethal. And I think for the most part, like I said, I think Fulham could have scored more goals, but they created so many opportunities from the counter, and they stopped their best players from playing for the majority of the game. Madison, you heard him a little bit, right? He made some hay, but very little. Song, what did you? I barely heard his name. I know he had a shot, but they really stifled central midfield. And when Fulham countered, they countered on the wings on both sides. The game plan, Max, I think, was really just to stop them from playing, break quickly on both wings. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, and get Muniz involved, as you mentioned at the beginning.
Exactly.
He was a physical presence. He was winning headers. He was holding up the play. I was watching with the Fulham DC fan club at the Brig yesterday in DC, and I said he's playing the Mitro role. And then someone said to me, he's more mobile than Mitro. He can actually run. He can put in the work rate. And I think that clicked yesterday. And the central midfield is superb to have that, Lukic, Palhinha, holding duo. It hasn't always worked in the past. People have said, Lukic maybe needs to play a different role, but the way they interchange, I thought was excellent. Yeah, and this comment with Lukic, totally agree.
Right. The comment from Wild Spot, thank you for commenting. Aki was winning the midfield battle. I never thought our midfield was going to be better than a Spurs midfield of Romero, Madison. Hats off to Sasa Lukic, best match as a Fulham player. So very interesting there, Max, because I was curious how that would all work out. Let's talk a little bit about that, because, we could talk about it when we get to the starting 11, but I think a huge call was the decision to play Lukic, and we'll get to that. But how did you feel him and Palhinha play together? I thought they were tremendous.
It was great. I think Marco reasoned that we needed a bit more steel in midfield, 2 big bodies who could crunch a tackle, but also play quick passing and launch us on the counterattacks in the wings. It worked perfectly. Putting Willian back in the starting 11, I thought was really inspired. We'd wondered, he hadn't started the past couple games. Is he hurt? Is he just second choice now? And the best managers say to their players their plan in advance. And I think what Marco said to Willian was, listen, you're not going to start Wolves. You're going to stay on the bench for these games. I want you for Spurs at home. And I think he motivated Willian to say, listen, I'm not dropping you. I'm saving you for a massive game, prime time. Everybody watching it against a team that no one fancies us against. You're going to show up. And let's remember, Willian turned down Tottenham when he went to Chelsea back in 2013. And he played for Arsenal. So Willian hates Tottenham. And I think Marco knew that. I think Marco motivated him. Yeah, you can't fault anything about the selection. And Castagna, again, I was saying
fantastic.
He's quietly become, an excellent signing. And when we signed him back in the summer, there was no excitement. People said, okay, maybe some competition for Tete. Now he has to be one of the first names in the team sheet.
Okay. What's getting back to talking about Lukic. This is from our friend Black, White, and Fred. Lukic was on Madison, which was smart, as JP probably would have gotten booked earlier on if he had been on him. And I tend to agree with that. His performance was great, Max, really great. And we're going to talk about all the players. But I want to now focus back on the game plan, because what I've learned from watching a lot of these videos from Spurs supporters is that Ange's system, he doesn't really change much, meaning they are kind of a do what they do kind of side. Arsenal are the same way. They basically just play the way that they are. So if you have a good game plan and you can figure them out, you know they're not going to change. All Ange did was he changed the players. He didn't really change their system to change how that match was going to go. So I want to give Marco a lot of credit here, because he knew how to beat them, and he probably knew they weren't going to change.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good comment by Steve Reynolds about the system, is that Spurs bring their fullbacks inside to play as like central midfielders. That's a really big part of how
Yes, it's a good
Ange
point.
wants to play. And where are all our attacks down the wings in the gaps they left? Which, I mean, it sounds simple as saying it now, but it's not easy necessarily to contend with that in the middle of the match. And we think, well, why don't more teams do that against Spurs? I think they weren't as well drilled as Fulham were yesterday. And the thing I love is the combinations between fullback, center mid, and winger. When our fullback would play it to Lukic or Palhinha, they'd lay it off, and then the through ball would go right in the corner diagonal to either Willian or Iwobi. And that was so effective. It happened so many times.
So
and
many
also
times.
Getting Robinson and Stein involved too. The assists are just great deliveries.
It was crazy because they were attacking them down both wings. It wasn't just one side. We've seen Fulham be heavy on the left-hand side, but this was pretty even. This is down both sides. So they knew exactly what they had to do in this match. And this is from, I believe, probably a Spurs supporter that says Ange has no plan B. And that's part of the story here, because if you know the manager's really not going to change things up, you can keep on going with your plan. And as long as you plan it and train for it during the week, you're going to be ready to go. And I believe I've seen some of the players, or maybe especially one player, mention that they were training for this all this week. They knew how to play against Spurs, and they just executed, Max.
Yeah. And listen, I think a big part of, I don't want to get too negative on Ange here, because I respect him. I respect his philosophy.
So do I.
And it works a lot. But I think a big part of it working is Spurs getting the first goal.
Yeah.
And that's what you talked about in your keys to victories. How many Premier League matches are decided by who just gets the first goal? And if Son doesn't sky that shot, the first time shot, and keeps it down, that goes in the top corner, I think it's a very different match, right? Because Spurs are open. They know they're open. But their bet, which obviously works more often than not, let's not forget they're 5th in the league and we're 12th. Their bet is that they'll get the first goal. Teams will come on, they'll be exposed, and they'll keep hitting them. And they said, let's get into a shootout, and we're fine. But they've some of the best players in the league, let's not forget. But yesterday, it didn't come off, and it shows the pitfalls of when you try to play that attacking in that open, in that system, and someone knows what to do and gets maybe a bit lucky like we did at the beginning. But by the end of the match, I think the biggest indictment of Spurs' performance was I was never nervous. I don't know about you, Russ. I mean,
I was very nervous. I'm not going to lie to you here. I was telling a Fulham supporter just this morning that I didn't relax until we got the stoppage time. I'm not kidding.
Fair, but the team, let's say Fulham didn't look nervous.
No, they didn't look nervous. I did. But
yeah, it was comfortable.
They were very comfortable. I want to give them credit. I was just nervous because I've been a Fulham supporter. I know the history, right? So I know that things can go badly very quickly. But they played with confidence. Now, did Spurs have a good amount of opportunities late? Sure, they did. But it took basically changing it up, bringing on new players for it to really start to click for them. And by that time, it's 3-0. It didn't really matter at that point, even though I was nervous. It didn't matter. They were in full control. And that's the bottom line. This was a game plan that worked, Max, that they saw from the beginning to the end. And as you just said, the word comfortable, I think, is the best way to describe it.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about a pet peeve of mine. the view from the media on this match. Now, Max, after the match, I happened to watch our friends at NBC Sports, and they gave us a little plaudits, but it had more to do with Spurs. I've seen a lot of comments. I listened to talkSPORT talking about Spurs. It was all about how sluggish they were, how they weren't up for it, how they might have taken Fulham lightly. There's a lot of this. And also, I've seen some stuff. I want to give some credit to, I guess you could say, some of the supporters of Tottenham giving us credit. Others did not. So they fall into this mix as well. I'm saying some Tottenham supporters, but I just saw a lot of lack of respect for what Fulham did and not understanding that it had to do with Fulham setting up. I kept hearing bad passing, right? Why do you think there was so much bad passing by Spurs? I watched this back, Max. I'm going to tell you right now, I've watched the match 3 times. That's how crazy I am. And all the bad passing I saw from Spurs was because of Fulham. It really was because of the way Fulham were set up. They forced them into these errors. These mistakes that they made were not on their own. They were forced by the other team. And I don't think Fulham are getting enough credit for that. And I actually, like I said, on full time, I mentioned this. I knew it was going to happen, and it's kind of played out that way, that Fulham were not going to get as much credit as I think they deserve. What are your thoughts on this?
So, full disclosure, I've been seeing people making the comment, which you said, which said, oh, Fulham's not getting credit. But, I watched the match at a pub, couldn't really hear the commentary, didn't watch any of the post game. I've been on Fulham Twitter seeing us, but I haven't seen the media disparage us, but it doesn't surprise me because that's the way it's been ever since I've been a Fulham fan. No, the only thing the media says about Fulham, Russ, is, oh, it's a nice place to go by the Thames, and oh, they have a
I
nice
hate that, by the
cottage.
way. Hate that.
That's they go through the same lazy tropes about us because no one really, with the exception of a few people, really bothers to get to know what Fulham is as a club, which that's just how it is in football. People support the big clubs; they give the big clubs coverage, and when a little club wins, it must be because the top club wasn't on their game.
Right.
To be fair, it's not wrong. If Tottenham played their best, they would beat us. That's how it goes in football.
Sure.
Son Heung-min had a stinker. He was shit, to be part of my French. He was awful.
It's okay.
If he plays even 50% of his capability, I think he has at least 2 goals because he's just that good. He's one of the top 5 players in the world, in my opinion, on his day. He's that dangerous. James Maddison's, I think, one of the best creative midfielders in England.
Right.
And he looked like, I don't know, he looked, I don't know, whatever Southgate says about him. It looked like he listened to a negative Gareth Southgate soundtrack before stepping out there, right? I mean, they were really poor. That being said, they don't give us any credit. But listen, it doesn't really, we can get angry about it, which of course is angering, but the best thing to do is just, shut everyone up and keep winning football matches.
Totally agree, Max.
But also, Russ, last thing I'll say,
yes,
we don't want the hype to get too much, all right? Because
I know where you're going on this. I know where
Marco Silva goes off to
Yep.
a big club, and Paulinho leads and Robinson leaves. So,
okay, I get that point. I totally get that point. Like I said, I talked to a friend this morning that brought up exactly what you just said. Let's keep us under the radar, Russ. Stop talking about it. Because you know what? It might alert other teams about our manager or our players. And I understand that. I want to share this from Isaac. He says the Tottenham supporters were too confident. It was scary. I believe that. They were coming off of a huge victory. I understand where that was kind of coming from. This is from our friend Black, White, and Fred. The media hates us, but that's fine by me. Let's keep flying under the radar. This is to your point. So let's go to Gary D. He says, media don't like Fulham. It's always the bigger sides that have an off day. See, that's my point, Gary. That's what's ticking me off. They have an off day. They're a bad day at the office. F that crap. Fulham made them look bad, and that was my point of saying that, honestly, is that it takes 2 to tango, Max. It takes 2 to play. And when I watch back the match and I see all the errors, I see what they call sluggishness. They didn't have anywhere to go. It's because of the game plan. And also, when they were trying to make the passing, Fulham were intercepting it because they were in the right place. They were causing the mistakes.
Yes, 100%. And I think what typifies that is Muniz's second goal.
Oh, yes.
Third. Just a total 50-50 ball right in front of the goal. And he just wanted it more.
Just wanted it more.
And got kicked and got absolutely destroyed by Dragusin in the process. but that's a dedication which we had and Tottenham didn't.
Yeah, I hear you. This is from Steve Reynolds. Still last on match of the day. Keep winning, and being last is great. Okay, I'll take that. Let's see from our again Black, White, and Fred. Thank you guys for commenting. Lots of teams have off days when playing Fulham. That is true. That is true. I hear it over and over again, but there's a reason for it because Fulham are a very good side, and I think at some point we need more credit. But to Max's point, maybe we should be flying underneath the radar. Maybe Russ should be shutting his trap. So I think maybe I'm going to shut my mouth. Let's move on. Let's talk about the starting line. We've already talked a little bit about it, so I just want to get your thoughts on when you saw it. Were you surprised by the decisions? Because there were some interesting ones. Willian comes back in. Again, you have the change in central midfield. You're moving Iwobi over to the right. Wilson's out. What were your thoughts when you saw the starting 11? Obviously, Marco got it right. What were you thinking at the time?
Palhinha back. There was a lot of conversation last week about how he came on during his cameo and was lucky not to be sent off, but it was right to put him back in. And it meant that Harrison Reed missed out, but I don't have a huge problem with that because I think it worked. And then, Wilson dropping to the bench. I think it's Marco just saying to him, look, we have competition. I don't think it was because of necessarily the miss, but I do think if he scores that goal, it's maybe a different conversation. But I liked everything about it. And, the Bassey-Tosin center back partnership again. My question to you, Russ, this is a little different. Is like,
go ahead.
Where does Tim Ream play again this season?
I was thinking the same thing. I'm glad that you brought that up. Look at what's happened here. Now he's down the pecking order, right? Diop too. But Ream is an interesting one. And I happen to like Tim Ream, but I think that his days of being a starter should be done, in my opinion. I think you have your best pairing right now. And I think it's under the ownership of the Khans to find a way to get Tosin to sign that deal. I don't know what you have to offer that guy. He might have his heart set on leaving, but I would pull out every stop because this partnership right now is fantastic. I think you would agree with me. Right now, Tosin and Bassey are really good together, and nothing against Tim Ream, but I think that we're not as good as the two of them together.
Yeah, it's really working. And I said it the other week is just the pace of it is just so it's stifling for an attacking opposition. There's times yesterday when I can't remember exactly what player, but it was a Spurs player just trying to take a big touch. And you can't take a big touch past Tosin. You can't. Nope. He will get there first, 9 times out of 10. So it's clicking.
It's clicking. And what's also good, and we could talk about Tim Ream and his passing, right? Look at Calvin Bassey's passing. Look at Tosin's passing. They're not just defending. They are starting the attack moving forward too. And that's what's great about them. They both can do that job. It's not just one player. Like, I think we'd see it a lot with Tim Ream. He was really the leader back there. I think they're both the leaders back there.
Yeah, they are. And what's amazing is Bassey, it's still his first year at the club.
I know.
And he had a rocky start to stuff. And I think his probably worst game for Fulham was a reverse fixture away at Spurs when he gave the ball away both times for them to get their goals, playing out the back. So contrast that in October to where we are now in March. I think the progression is really impressive, and credit to Bassey, credit to Marco for sticking with him too.
Absolutely. I'm going to share some comments as we're talking about this. This is from Gary D. Right selection, bang on from Silva. Was wanting for him to try João and Lukic together. They will be amazing for the future if João Palhinha stays. What's interesting here, Max, is that this midfield three has morphed and changed several times. And I don't know what is the best combination. Is it has to do with the opponent, or is this ultimately going to be the best combination of two to go along with Pereira? What are your thoughts about this? And I'm going to share this also from Wild Spud. He follows up on this. Our team depth is in a good spot right now. Having guys like Reed, Kearney, Raul, etc. on the bench is really nice. So what are your thoughts about, especially Reed and Kearney? We can also talk about Raul as well. Maybe they won't be starting moving forward. I don't know. Or is it going to be game plan specific where he can mix and match this midfield?
Yeah, I'm gonna take an easy answer and say I think it's game specific because it depends the opposition. Because I don't know myself. I don't think Marco knows himself either. The bottom line, though, this is a good problem to have. This is what established, successful Premier League teams do. They have multiple players challenging for positions. It's what we've cried out for a long time on this
Yes.
podcast is competition, because you cannot rely on the same 11 unless you're like a really top team. And they don't even do that. But basically, you can't stick with the same 11 in the Premier League and have a weak bench, or else you get relegated. You need to have competition. It's people on the bench who should feel each match, why am I not starting, to the manager? And I think we're seeing that in center back. We just described that with with Diop and Ream on the bench.
Right.
I mean, remember when that was a starting partnership and it wasn't bad, that's good. We really, it's bittersweet because there are players like Ream, who I think you and I both agree, maybe one of our favorite players ever.
Yes, absolutely.
And who just last season, we were calling him the best player at the club, right? Because he was player of the season, you could argue.
He was.
And now he's on the bench, and that makes me feel sad personally, but that's what happens when you get to a level of beating top teams. You have to leave good players, fan favorites on the bench, and that's okay. It still hurts because we love Tim Ream. We want to see him playing, but it's tough. And same with someone like Kearney, or Harrison Reed,
right,
or Raul Jimenez in many ways. It's good not to have a bench just filled with academy graduates who maybe you've seen play once for the under 23s and had a loan spell at a League Two team. Now we have established players who are on the bench, and then you look at most other top Premier League teams to succeed, they have the same thing. We're in a good way.
Max, Broya was not even on the bench. This is huge. The fact that Fulham are going to eat that deal, he wasn't even on the bench. Think about
Chelsea
that.
Are happy. Chelsea are getting a lot of money from us. They're loving that.
Okay, very good. I want to share this comment from Mike because this goes along with what we're talking about. I agree with this. Tim Ream is very useful behind the scenes. His intelligence could be used on the coaching staff in the future. I hope he becomes part of the coaching staff, Max. This is a very good point by Mike.
100%. I thought when you were talking 5 minutes ago about the center backs, I thought you were going to say we need to find a way for the Cons to sign Ream to be a coach.
Before that.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to do it, is say, Tim, you're not starting every week. That's okay. Everyone knew there would be a time and that would come when you're in your mid to late 30s. We want you in the club. We player manager, coach under 23s, join Marco's backroom staff. It would be a shame if Tim Ream left Fulham. I think he should be here a long time. And I think it's clear he is the leader. He's a leader. Even if he's not playing week in, week out, he's a leader.
Absolutely, Max. And listen, we need leaders. And what's funny, because when I'm listening and watching the Spurs shows, right, they're talking about the lack of leadership on the pitch. This is what I kept hearing, a leader on the pitch, but it's also a leader off the pitch. And Tim Ream, who was a leader on the pitch, even when he is not playing, I'm sure he's a leader behind the scenes. So I agree with you. I would love to see him stay with the club. He has a young family. I hope something can be worked out that he continues to play at Fulham, and when he's done playing, he gets on the coaching staff. I think that would be the right decision by the Cons to do that for him.
Totally agree. Because he's someone who I think is just respected so much, and what he's seen for Fulham as well, right? He's been with us since 2015. I mean, all the different eras of Fulham that he and Kearney have seen side by side. That's experience and just, wisdom he can pass on to everyone.
Absolutely. And Black, White, and Fred says it all. Coach Ream feels right. It does. And I hope that becomes a reality someday. Okay. Coming up next in the second half of the show, Max and I are going to break down this match, look at both halves, and we'll end with man of the match. Feel free at any time to share who was your man of the match. Okay, Max, let's go to the second half of the show. Now let's really get to talking about the actual football in the match. So I want to just get your thoughts on the first half. We'll talk about the goal in just a bit, but I just want to talk about just overall what we both watched here. I'll just share my thoughts and I'll go to you, because when I look at it from the get-go, I felt that Spurs were going to have the ball, and not that Fulham were allowing them to have the ball, but they were setting traps. They were setting things up to beat them on the counter. I saw it, I want to say 2 minutes in, when you saw the first counterattack from Fulham. It kept coming over and over again. The only issue I had before the goal was, here we go again. We're creating these opportunities and we're not capitalizing. It was going down that route until the goal. And I want to talk about the goal separately, but I want to just get your thoughts, because obviously, I thought Fulham were dominant in the first half. They executed this game plan. Spurs had nowhere to go. They were looking for the passing lanes. There was nothing there. And then they would make a mistake that was more often than not forced by Fulham. And then Fulham were breaking with pace down both sides, Max, going down both sides. Like we said in the beginning, it wasn't just one side. Timothy Castagna, Robinson on the other. You got Willian, Iwobi, Pereira playing a role, and obviously Rodrigo Muniz, all working together, but breaking with pace. That's what I saw. And I saw a few opportunities from Tottenham. They actually had their spell, but we weathered their spell and scored a goal. So we took that negative of basically hunkering down a little bit for several minutes, probably about 10, 15 minutes. And then we got a sucker punch and we scored that goal, but it was warranted. We deserved, in my opinion, Max, to go into the half up 2 or 3-0. That's how good I thought they played. And we'll talk about the goal separately.
Yeah, I think the most important thing was the mentality from minute one was we're going to play like we can win the game. And sometimes in big clubs at the Cottage or anywhere in the league, we've been a bit cautious and we've had to sit back and teams just camp themselves outside of our 6-yard box. I mean, if you remember the Arsenal game, how early did Saka score, right?
Yes.
That was like 3-4 minutes in. So this is something that Marco clearly said is like, get out there and punch them in the face and push them back and show them that we mean business. And you're right, it could have been more. The other incident I want to talk about is when Robinson had it on the left wing before the goal and beats his man, beats the fullback, takes a second, looks up, and puts a great cross in that was almost flicked in by Muniz.
I know.
That moment to me signified so much about his performance for Robinson is that, you know, he had the confidence to beat his man. He got to the byline and didn't just hit it without looking up. He picked his spot. These are the kind of decision-making skills. If we see that improve, and I don't want to be too, optimistic, it's one game, but that showed me so much of maturity and the full player he can be.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say maturity. We're on the same page here, especially when it comes to him, because there's been this process, this maturation process. And I think you saw it on full display. The confidence to do what you just said he did. I don't think I've seen it to that level. I actually remember him doing a pass that led to a goal from Jimenez earlier in the season. So there was a similar pass just like that, cross. He's done it before. But it wasn't just that. It was his entire game. Tracking back defensively, he was just awesome. And I understand why people are going to say he was man of the match. We'll get to that. I've already seen comments of him being man of the match. So he deserves that. His maturity is on full display right now. It is completely on full display. So I want to give him as much credit because he deserves it, my friend. So let's now talk about the goal, because that's going to lead us to talking about it. Because as I said in my preview show, we've already talked about this. That first goal dictated the rest of the game. Let's call what it is. It affected Tottenham probably more than it affected Fulham, because now Fulham were ahead. Fulham are front runners. I don't have any issue saying that. I think that's a good thing. They like playing from ahead. Now it sets everything else that they want to do, and I think it forces Tottenham to be something that they don't want to be. That goal changed the match. That's the biggest change in this match, was that goal. And it was a wonderful goal. And it was a wonderful first touch by Rodrigo Muniz. Walk us through the goal and your thoughts on the goal.
Yeah, I just think that looping, curving right into his path ball by Robinson is just maybe one of the assists of the season, just based on the trajectory and the player it came from in the moment. Oh, it was a joy to behold. And for Muniz, it's not an easy chance still. He has so much to do. And the way he took it down, cushioned the first touch to set him up perfectly for the hard loan to the corner for the finish. It's an instinctive striker's goal, but it's also a goal with confidence. And as Steve says in the comments, he would have hit Rose last season. And it's just, I mean, what a player we have on our hands. A couple weeks ago, I said, are we seeing Muniz? Is this a good player on an amazing stretch? Or is this the signs of someone who could be an amazing player? With each coming week, with each coming goal and performance, I think I'm shifting towards the latter. mean, it feels like Manor Solomon in a way, but better because he's doing it over a consistent period of time. It's not the same type of goal. I mean, he is the top goal scorer in the Premier League, in the past 10? I saw some stat that he scored more than Watkins and Saka. I
That's
mean,
crazy.
not just in the bottom half, not just outside the top 6, in the entire league. And he plays for Fulham, and it's Muniz. I mean, what?
I understand the comparison to Manor Solomon because he had his purple patch, right? Then teams figured him out. They completely figured him out. They have not figured Rodrigo Muniz out right now. Rodrigo Muniz is bullying center backs, but not only that, he's showing his skill. He's showing not only does he have a lot of skill, but he's also a poacher too. His second goal is a poacher's goal. He was in the right place at the right time. He just poked it in. Got hurt at that time, and hopefully he's okay. But you know what? Why do we just assume that he's not going to get better? Because he's only getting better each and every match. It's confidence. I think it's different when it comes down to Manor Solomon because I don't think he ever adjusted his game, Max. I think it really isn't the same.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. And they're different types of players. So wingers, I think, aren't as involved in the game, week in, week out as strikers can be. And wingers can have some anonymous performances. But I mean, yeah, that's that. January 1st.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Remarkable.
Thank you for sharing that, Carl. That's crazy. I'll take your word for it on
so,
that.
And I think we have to talk about this as well. The entire summer and the first 3 months of the season, we were here banging on about there's a striker crisis. Fulham and Tony Khan were negligent in not getting a Mitro replacement. And this is going to be an issue which is a huge problem for us staying in the Premier League or being comfortable. And Marco said at every turn, we thought he was lying. We thought he was just posturing. He said, I'm happy with the players we have, which was Jimenez, Muniz, and Vinicius. And we said, he's crazy. It's clearly not the case. He's clearly, sending mind games. Were we wrong?
Right.
Do we have to go out here and apologize? Because that was the main topic. I remember that was the Fulham narrative. Mitro's gone. We can't. And there was a time, to be fair, I think we were one of the lowest scores in the league. And then did Marco see this all along? I don't think so. I think this just came out of nowhere. But still, I mean, the resurgence of Muniz is something I don't think anyone really has a true answer for.
Right. I definitely hear you on that, Max. Totally understand all that. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the second half. I'll let you get us started. We're going to talk about the individual goals coming up, but just give me your overall analysis of how Fulham played in the second half. Obviously, come out very strong, score the 2 goals early, and put the match away. As you said, we were comfortable. But I want you to just share your view on what you watched in the second half.
I mean, completely the most important part of the match, I think, was the first 15, 20 minutes. Because if Spurs get an early goal, momentum's with them and they could have won it. And the fact that we came out so strong and put the game to bed, as you said, it's a game management which sometimes you don't see in the league from us. And again, I mean, what a cross for the Lukic goal, just flicked in and the corner and for the Bassi strike and Muniz coming. I mean, we came out of the locker room the more motivated of the two teams, which is normally opposite. When we are ahead, normally it's the other team coming on and bombing forward and we're being pressed back. But we were the team taking the initiative to Spurs, and that's credit to whatever Marco said in the dressing room.
Right. And that's what's crazy about this. What do you make of their opportunities to score, Max?
For Fulham?
No, for Spurs.
Yeah, I mean, they had chances. They were dangerous, but I think Leno stood firm. I think the best chance they had was Werner when it was already 3-0. And then he just puts it wide. But, there was no point where I thought that we were going to give up this game. It just seemed like we had the bit between our teeth and we felt like we were the better side.
Okay, very good there, my friend. All right, let's now get back and let's talk about the first goal. And again, this was shortly after the half began. Give me your thoughts on Fulham's first goal. Second goal first goal of the second half.
I mean, this to me, I don't know whether Lukic meant it or not. But if he did, and he just flicks that ball in off his knee, that is an insane instinctual finish. But yeah, it came down the right wing, same kind of interplay we were talking about earlier. And I think it was Castagna who assisted.
Castagna.
It was Castagna.
Yep.
So both fullbacks an amazing assist, and that's the kind of pass which just any sort of forward runner loves, because all you have to do is get a touch on it, because the pace is on it, the height's on it. All you have to do is direct it in. And credit to Lukic for making the run from midfield. Those are the most dangerous runs, in my opinion, because the center backs don't think to pick them up, and they have all the momentum. It's like you're running downhill and you arrive into the box. Everything about the timing was fantastic, and the ball went in the net. And I think everyone was like, "What happened? Was it an own goal? Did he mean it? Did he head it? Did he flick it?" And it was a very satisfying goal to watch back.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Max. All right. So now Fulham are up 2-0, and it's feeling good. Now let's talk about the third goal. And again, this put the match away. Give me your thoughts on the third goal.
Yeah, coming off a set piece, Bassi almost had his kind of Man U goal special. Just the way he blasts that in was very reminiscent of the goal at Old Trafford. A very funny deflection, right off the post. Or I think Vicario flicked it off the post and then goes behind him out. And the ball's just sitting there in the middle of the 6-yard box. No one's around. And Muniz, just amazing dedication to get that, because he knows he's going to be kicked by the Tottenham center back. He knows he's just going to be absolutely battered, but he knew a touch and that's your goal. And that's what strikers love to do, is put themselves in a situation to tap in. He got hurt in the process, but you don't feel the pain once you score your second goal. So
No, absolutely, my friend. Okay, great stuff there, Max. Great stuff. Okay. So let's now finish up by talking about man of the match, okay? So I'll go right to you. Give me your man of the match. There are a couple candidates. A lot of people have Anthony Robinson as their man of the match, and I certainly understand that. Alex Iwobi. You could go both center backs. Honestly, there's so many to name. I'm going to tell you who I went with. On the full-time show, someone actually put this up. I had man of the match as Marco Silva, okay? Because I thought Marco's game plan was phenomenal, set Fulham up to succeed. But if you want to go with a player, feel free to go with a player. I actually went with Marco. So who's your man of the match?
Muniz, for me, is my guy. I know a lot of people saying Robinson, which I understand because he was excellent. But the goal-scoring hero is the person who's putting the ball in the back of the net for us. And I just love the resurgence from Muniz, the confidence in everything he does. I mean, the build-up play, he's winning headers, as he said, he's bullying defenders. For me, it was Rodrigo Muniz.
Okay, let's see what else we have on in the comments section. So we've got let's see what we got. Black, White, and Fred says man of the match. Jedi feels a bit harsh on Muniz, but Robinson was unreal. Gary D says Robinson man of the match. Chris Davidson, Robinson man of the match. Let's see what else we got. Martin Smith says Tosin was brilliant. Got a good feeling he will stay. We'll see. We'll see what happens on that. Let's see. See what else we got. They're still coming in. Steve says Jedi with Bassi close seconds. We got a lot of people with all over the place on this, but so you have Muniz, but Robinson right up there.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is you could give it to any number of 4 to 5 players.
How about Sasa Lukic?
Or Lukic. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of places you can go on this. Great stuff, my friend. Great stuff. Listen, let's wrap up this show, okay? So give me your final thoughts before we go, my friend.
Final thoughts is we're at 38 points. We're safe. We're not going down. We've known that for a couple weeks now, but I think this is probably the confirmation of it. Let's see what we can do. There are a lot of teams above us who have games in hand, sure, but it's 3 to 4 to 5 points up to 9th, 8th. I don't think we can get Europe, but we can try. And based on all the comments I'm seeing in the conversation we had about the lineup and the competition for places and the way we're playing, it feels like we're clicking here in March. This is the best we've seen Fulham over a consistent, I think, month and a half long period, you could argue. We beat Brighton 3-0. winning United away.
Yep.
You know, arguably should have gotten something out of both Villa and Wolves, two very on-form teams. And then this match is a cherry on top. So, you know, other teams, you know, are playing in the cup, other teams are playing in Europe right now. You know, we can take the match to almost any team we play, I think, based on yesterday's evidence, based on United. Why not?
Okay.
Why not go and try to put a run on? And you know, the pressure's off now. So let's enjoy it, because this is
Okay.
a nice situation to be in. It's March and we're not going down.
Absolutely, my friend. And I just want to share this comment from Black, White, and Fred. Lukic deserves an honorable mention. I think he absolutely does. So I'm going to share some more comments. This is from Wild Spot. I was kind of thinking the same thing here. I wish we weren't going on an international break right now. I'm there with you. Let's see. Gary D says, we have a say in relegation. We could put Brentford in a worse spot. I agree with you. We also have a say on who's going to win the league. Just keep that in mind, too. We actually do. I think. This is from Isaac. He says, let's finish at 50 points minimum. Let's go for it. I'm with you on that. And let's see what Carl says. Number one goal for the rest of the season, beat Brentford. I'm there. I can't stand Brentford. They're one of my three hated teams. We went through that last week. So my final thoughts are this, Max, and then we're going to wrap up the show, because we're going to do a show next week. And the show's going to be about the rest of the season. Me, you, and Giannis, we're going to plan on a show. And I'm looking forward to it, because I think Fulham are in a unique situation, as you just said, to do something when there's no pressure on them. So I was talking to a Fulham supporter today, and we were going through this to realistically get in position for Europe, maybe the Europa Conference. Fulham would probably have to win 7 out of the next 9. Now, that's a big ask. So we'll get through it when we get there on the show next week. It is possible if you think about it, if you look at the opponents coming up. But it is a tall task. It's not an easy thing for them to get into Europe. But I say, Max, we go for it, just like we're talking about here. My final thoughts is, you got nothing to lose. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to win 7 out of 9. I'll say it here. I don't think that's a hot take, but let's make sure we get top half of the table.
Yeah, I hear you, my friend. Okay. All right. Well, excellent show. Thank you, everyone, for commenting and joining us live. As we wrap up the show, Max, I'm going to let everyone know we have 111 people watching us live, which is amazing. So thank you. It just went up to 113. Thank you, everyone who watches and listens to Cottage Talk. It means a lot to myself, Max, everyone that co-hosts the show with me. Just thank you so much. And I'm glad that you jumped on with Max and me today. But we are going to wrap it up. For Max Cohen, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the talkSPORT Fan Network.